Hey, what's up, guys? That was a bad hey. I'm leaving it in. What's up, guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the new masterpiece MP-50 Cybertron Polar Scout TIGATRON from Beast Wars. And you guys know I grew up on Beast Wars. It's one of my favorite things that I have to remember as a kid. That came out sounding weird. You know what I mean. It's something from my youth that I enjoy a lot. And so I have to collect these and show these to you guys, and it's a pretty cool figure. They've been overall excellent figures. I think they've been overall getting better and better, with, I would say, Megatron and Dinobot being the creme de la creme. Black Arachnia is okay, Cheetor is pretty good, and Optimus is pretty good, especially being the first one. But this one raised some concerns when it was first shown. I know a lot of people thought the cat mode looked good from the front half, the back half looked pretty freaky. And then there were some issues with robot mode. We're going to talk about all of that. This is going to be probably a lengthy review, and I'm not going to show you the transformation because that would make it even longer. It's a very tedious transformation. But there's lots to talk about, so let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. Okay, this guy stands, you can see he's slightly posed still, just a tiny little bit, but this will be good enough. I mean, you're going to get the idea for this scale. He stands to the top of his head, not the thing behind him, just about 8 inches, which makes him pretty close to 20.5 centimeters. And I will do some height comparisons if... I don't know where I have my Beast Wars masterpiece things at. I don't know where they are. If I can find them, I will grab them and do some height comparisons for you. If not, check those other reviews and they all have height measurements in them. All right, now before we get into the review, question of the day. It's a twofer. You get 2 questions. Question number 1, Maximals or Predacons? You have to pick one. Question number 2, ignoring the first question, it can be from either side. Even if you picked Maximals, you can pick a Predacon. Who's your favorite Beast Wars character from the animated series, the CGI animated series, not Beast Wars 2, none of that other stuff? Which one's your favorite? For me, definitely Maximals. And then also, I'm gonna have to go with Rhinox. I really liked Rhinox as a kid. Depth Charge was awesome, and obviously Optimus is cool. No, I take it all back. Dinobot. I forgot about Dinobot. Totally forgot about Dinobot. Then Rhinox, then Depth Charge, then Optimus. Character-wise, not design-wise. Okay, that's enough. All right, here's TIGATRON. Let's just talk about the stuff that people, mostly me, I mean maybe other people too, I assume they were concerned with, in the images of the figure. First of all, his knees being separated and kind of clunky looking. They look okay when the legs are perfectly straight, but when you pose him, he does have that weird disjointed look where the ball is up here and the joint is down here. I don't mind that so much. The issue I have with that is more a functionality issue, so we'll talk about that in the actual articulation section. As far as the aesthetic goes, it doesn't bother me. The other thing I was really concerned with was the tiger head. It does seem to stick out more than it should. You can see it does have a full-on tiger's head profile on there, and in the show that is not the case. I know some people are arguing about that around the internet, and because it's the internet and that's what people do, but it's easy enough to quell that by just showing you this reference image. The tiger head should be mushed flatter on his chest. Surprisingly, it doesn't bother me that much. You don't really notice it all that much, and it's fine. I will point out though, and maybe you guys are having the same issue, and maybe you're not, and if you're not, maybe you can tell me why I am. It looks to me like it should be able to sit in there farther. You see that green square that the head is kind of keyed around? I can't get it to go in there any farther. And I've tried multiple times, many different transformations, many different ways, and I can't get it to go any farther. Are you guys having that same issue? That might help, though it looks to me like if you did that, the face would be even more crowded. And the face is crowded. But those 2 issues don't bother me anymore, anywhere near as much as I thought they would. So that's a good thing. And aesthetically speaking, in robot mode, because that's what the review is going to focus on, we will do the cat mode at the end, but in robot mode, it's a surprisingly good transform. I mean, that's what he's supposed to look like. As far as kibble goes, yeah, I mean, the legs probably stick out more than they should based on the show, but the show didn't have a thing made out of plastic, so that's perfectly reasonable. Things like the backs of his calves are kind of lumpy, but there's really not too much in the way of kibble. It's pretty well done. I'd say the worst kibble, really, and this is what bothers me the most, is on the arms. These don't fold up as much as I would like. Is it a huge deal? Not really. It depends on the angle you look at him from, but all in all, it's pretty solid. I'm very pleased with it. They did use the tampography, like the dot matrix printing for the tiger marks, and it's not perfect everywhere, but it looks pretty good. The paint job for his face, like the gray lines on his face, that looks really good. That's super clean. I'll note that mine has an issue up here, and that's very disappointing. But otherwise, it's really clean. That they made the orange eyes in there for the robot mode and green eyes or whatever color they are. Are they green? I think they're green. I don't remember. Yeah, green eyes for beast mode. That's pretty good. The metallic greens are painted nicely. The molded white is nice. It's very aesthetically pleasing in robot mode. So aesthetically speaking, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. They could fix a few things and make it look better, but it is still really solid. Now, as far as accessories go, we do have his one gun, which is the one that you saw in his hand, and it's got the intestines on it, and that's pretty good. No problems there. For faceplates, we have a bunch. We have the neutral one that comes on him in the package. We have the one with blue eyes for when he's doing the thingy. We have the one where he's kind of squinting and his mouth is showing, and that's pretty good. Then we have the one where he looks concerned, maybe, and that's pretty good. Then we have the one where he's very definitely concerned, and that all looks very good. It's very well executed. We do have the little thingy that plugs into his head, and it's like for hacking, or I think it's hacking if I remember correctly. I think that has something to do with this Megatron head that has the swivelly side parts. It's like a Rubik's Cube type thing. I don't know, I've seen the show so many times, but I don't remember like that one scene, whatever. We also have a few missiles that can go onto his one arm, so that's nice. And then we have a piece for helping him to connect to a display stand, which is not included, the display stand, but this is for that, so you can do that. I guess lastly, we have a little card with his character info on there. So not the best array of accessories, I would say. Lots of heads, that's cool. Not including a display stand, I'm fine with if it would have cost too much, but I don't feel like they needed to charge more to include it based on the price point. But it is what it is. I'll give it an 8 just because we have a lot of different heads. But without him lighting up, or making noise, or having a display stand, his high price point is somewhat more questionable than some of the others, but he's still pretty decent overall. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and talk about the articulation of this guy in robot mode as if it's an action figure, because that's essentially what Transformers are. They are action figures once you transform them, and if you keep them in car mode or beast mode or whatever it is, you're a weirdo, and I will fight you about it, because if you want to buy a tiger toy, then just go buy a tiger toy. Fight me. Okay, so his head rotates for sure, no problem there. In the proto images, they show it leaning up, like to look up. I can't make it do that. I see a hinge back there, but I can't get mine to do it effectively. Like, that's as much as I can lift mine up. So I don't know what's going on. You guys can let me know if yours has functioned any better than mine, but to me, that's all I get. There's no rotation or no leaning, it's just the rotation, really. Now for the shoulders, we have perfectly normal shoulders, but we also have these guys that the shoulders connect to. And that could be helpful for posing, I guess, because they lean in and they lean down. And that would be fine if they had a neutral position that was somehow tabbed or something. That never stays in place. It's nowhere near stiff enough. I can make it stay in place, and obviously then the shoulders work just fine, but even, look, this side's already hanging down. It's always a problem. Maybe you guys have tighter ones, mine is not tight. If I had a nickel. Rotation is fine, like it's a full-on ball hinge. There's nothing wrong with the shoulder joint on its own. It's just this hinged sockety piece right here, which is kind of a pain in the ass. For the elbows, I have a really stiff elbow on this side, but you get really good range. Excellent elbow joint there, very nicely executed. And then for the wrists, you have a swivel, there's a hinge for the whole hand, and then there's also a hinge for the index finger and the rest of the fingers. So that is pretty good. He can hold his weapon just fine. This wrist was a little bit loose on mine. You would think tightening that screw would help. It did, but just barely. So very loose wrist, tight elbow, normal elbow. Some of these tolerances are making me wonder what's going on in their factory. And we'll get to even more. We do have a waist twist, which is always nice. You don't always get those. You don't get a ton of range, but you can get about like 20 degrees either direction. And I think that's pretty good. I guess you could even get more, but this is gonna bump. So be aware of that. Now for the hips, they go out to the side pretty much all the way. So that's awesome. And they're not super tight, but they're not loose in that direction. And they can go forward that far, and they are ratcheted in that position. His crotch piece does get in the way, but that's probably good enough, I'd say. That's all right. You get a thigh swivel down here at the knee, which I think is fine because what difference does it make? So that's all right. And then that knee joint I was telling you about being ugly looking. Not only is there always a little bit of play in it, at least as far as I can tell, I can't figure out a way to make it not do that. There's always a little bit of play in it, but even the knee joint itself is very loose on mine. Very loose, especially on this side. There's almost no stiffness, both in that little bit and in the main joint. So his knees are janky, I think is the right word for that. I don't like that at all. The knees blow. I don't like that. And then for the ankles, the swivel is fine, but you can see, maybe you can see, there's a little bit of a gap there, and because of that, the feet tend to pivot the wrong way naturally. So in order to get them to go flat, you have to lean them, and then it creates a gap. That's a little bit of an eyesore. It doesn't really bother me, but it's worth noting. He does have a perfect ankle rocker. It's just kind of an ugly joint. And then leaning the foot forward, you get very little. Just a tiny bit out of that. And then leaning it back, almost none. Not really any. Yeah, so the feet are enough to hold him up, but not great. The articulation on this guy from here down is not good. Arms are great-ish. Yeah, I don't know. I went through it all. You can decide what you like or don't like about that, but now you have the information about the articulation. I don't know how I feel about it. Some of it makes me happy. It's definitely not their best release, I'll put it that way. It's fine in a lot of ways. I still think the shining point is the aesthetic, and I'll be happy to stick them on a shelf and it'll look good, but the legs bum me out a whole bunch. Bad knee joints and bad ankle joints and looseness on a figure this expensive, not really what you want to have. I don't think it's a deal breaker by any means, but those are definitely some issues, and it's a little bit of a bummer considering how expensive these guys are. So I'll give the articulation, I mean, for a Transformer, it's still really good, especially considering he's a cat that turns into a full-on action figure. It's still like a 7, but we have issues for sure that I think you guys should be aware about or aware of, and now you are. So my job is done-ish. What I want to do now, though, is just get him transformed and show you cat mode and talk about that briefly. I'm not going to show you the transformation. There are instructions, and I'm sure other people have made videos about that. I don't want to waste your time. If you need to watch a video to transform him, you're not reading the instructions correctly, so go do that, and I will show you what he looks like in beast mode. Okay, so here he is in beast mode, and I have to say, it's not like an especially challenging transformation, but it is just so finicky. There are so many panels that have to tab into place. It's not the worst thing I've ever done. It's just one of the ones that's not particularly fun to do. Like, you know, maybe you won't know, but for me anyway, sometimes Transformers are fun to transform, and then sometimes it's a chore and you kind of regret ever wanting to change them from one mode to the other. Alright, well, I was going to rotate his eyes around so you could see that he has different colored eyes. They both have pupils, the green and the orange ones, but I can't get it to freaking spin around, so I'm just going to leave it. Anyway, it's fine from certain angles. It's okay, like, it still looks like a cat. Like, from this angle, it looks pretty good. The back feet are just jacked, though. I hate that. I hate that so much. I also hate how wide the back hips are, and how they're mostly green, and how his groin area is just a cavity of robot parts. In some angles, it looks really good. In other angles, it looks like utter garbage. This is, as far as I'm concerned, worse than even Black Arachnia's beast mode. It's not good enough. Also, the way they did the paint down here, where they did like the speckly stripes everywhere, that's fine, whatever. Then they just airbrushed white down here for his belly. Like, they could have made this just faded and actually put some kind of decent paint job, but they just airbrushed white on top of the black, and to me, it looks super cheap. I hate this. I hate this beast mode a lot. There are things about it that are good, obviously, like in some ways it looks right, but it's not good. The way the head is connected, there's a big cavity there. Like, it's okay if you make him look up, but then that's a huge cavity. It just feels like it's so wasn't the focus, which technically I'm fine with because it's always going to be in robot mode for me, but this is a review, so I have to talk about it. It's just not good enough. It's a bad beast mode. It is the worst beast mode they've done. It's not absolutely terrible in every way, but as far as I'm concerned, it's not good. The tail's fairly articulated, but who cares? The arms are barely articulated, but who cares? It's beast mode. Don't leave it in beast mode. If you want to leave it in beast mode, you're a weirdo. Put it in robot mode and enjoy it for being awesome in robot mode, mostly. Beast mode, very weak. Look how wide the hips are. And you might be thinking he has it transformed incorrectly. Maybe I do, but I can't get it in any other pose, and this is the way it was in the package, and I've retransformed it a few times, and this is how it ends up every time. And nothing ever wants to stay snapped into place. Maybe I do have it wrong this time. Whatever. It looked like this either way. It's not good either way. I might be able to do it a little bit better. I don't know. I'm not retransforming. These don't tab into place ever. These pieces right here. I'm not transforming it again. I don't care. It's unpleasant for me to transform this. Use that information. If you're like me, you might not like transforming this figure. If you aren't, then maybe you will, but I don't enjoy it at all. I'm not going to try again. I don't like the beast mode. I don't like it at all. Leave it in robot mode. And that'll do it. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you might want to, because I have new videos almost every single day and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.